Right now, someone needs to hear this. Your pain is not pointless, your suffering is not unseen, and your cross is not too heavy. Why? Because over 2,000 years ago, on a hill called Calvary, Love himself chose to suffer so that you would never suffer alone. In the quiet moments of contemplation, when the world seems to pause and reflect upon the greatest sacrifice ever made, a revelation emerges that changes everything. Today, I invite you to journey with me into the heart of Good Friday, not as you've known it before, but through a lens of divine understanding that Pope Francis has illuminated for our time. Something incredible was revealed by Pope Francis about Good Friday, something so profound, so unexpected, it changes how we see Christ's passion forever. If you've ever felt the weight of the cross in your own life, if you've ever wondered why suffering exists, then what you're about to hear will shake you to your soul. The Holy Father spoke words that many missed, but once you hear them, you'll never forget them. Stay with me, because this truth is too powerful to ignore. Before we go deeper, make sure you hit like and subscribe. This is a message too important to keep to yourself. Share it with someone who needs hope today. And don't forget to comment below, what does Good Friday mean to you? Let's start a conversation that could change lives. Think about the darkest moment in history. The Son of God, beaten, mocked, nailed to wood. The sky went black, the earth shook, and in that moment, something happened that most of us never noticed until now. Pope Francis pointed to a hidden reality within Christ's suffering, a truth so deep, it redefines love itself. You've heard the story 1,000 times, but what if you missed the most important part? What if the agony of the cross wasn't just about pain, but about a secret victory? The Holy Father revealed that in Christ's deepest cry, my God, why have you forsaken me?" there was a mystery unfolding. A mystery that touches your life right now. Here's what most people don't realize. When Jesus hung on that cross, he wasn't just carrying the weight of sin, he was carrying you. Every tear you've shed, every pain you've felt, every moment you've been alone. He was there, and Pope Francis said something shocking, that in his abandonment, he was closer to us than ever. Does that change how you see your own suffering? Does it make you wonder, what if your darkest moments are not the end, but a doorway? Stay with me, because we're just getting started. And if this is speaking to your heart, drop a comment below. Have you ever felt God in your suffering? Your story could inspire someone watching right now. Now, let's go deeper. The world saw a dying man on a cross, but heaven saw something else. Pope Francis described it as a divine reversal, where defeat became victory, where death became life. The soldiers thought they were in control. The crowds thought it was over, but God was working in the silence. Think about this. When Jesus said, "It is finished," it wasn't a whisper of surrender. It was a declaration. The devil thought he had won. But in that moment, every chain was broken. Every sin was forgiven. Every heart had a chance to be made new. And here's the part that will leave you speechless. Pope Francis said that Christ's suffering wasn't just for us, it was with us. He didn't just save us from afar, he entered into our pain. So when you feel alone, when the weight is too heavy, remember, he knows. He's been there, and because of that, your suffering has meaning. Your pain is not wasted. Your cross is not the end. Does that give you hope? Does it make you see Good Friday differently? Tell me in the comments, how has Christ's passion touched your life? And if this message is speaking to you, don't keep it to yourself, hit share right now. Someone in your life needs to hear this today. But wait, there's more. Pope Francis didn't stop there. He revealed something even more shocking. He said that the cross was not just a moment in history, it's a reality now. Every time a child goes hungry, every time an innocent suffers, Christ is on that cross again. And every time we love, every time we forgive, we take him down from it. That means you have a role in this story. Your choices matter, your love matters, your faith matters. The cross wasn't just something that happened 2,000 years ago, it's happening today. In you, through you. Let that sink in. The passion of Christ isn't just a memory, it's a living truth. And if we truly understood that, how would we live differently? How would we love more deeply? How would we carry our own crosses with courage? This is the part where everything changes. This is where faith becomes real. And if you're feeling this right now, don't let it end here. Subscribe, because there's so much more to discover. And leave a comment. How will you live differently after hearing this? What you just heard was only the beginning. The cross is deeper than we ever imagined. The love of Christ is stronger than we ever knew. And if this touched your heart, let it move your hands, like, share, subscribe. Take this truth and pass it on. Because the world needs this message, someone out there is waiting for hope, and it starts with you. When we think of the journey to Calvary, we often picture the physical suffering, the crown of thorns, the scourging, the nails. But Pope Francis invites us to look deeper, to see beyond the visible wounds into the heart of Christ himself. The physical pain, though terrible, was just the surface of his suffering. Imagine for a moment what it meant for the Son of God, who had lived in perfect communion with the Father for all eternity, to suddenly feel the weight of separation, to experience the spiritual darkness that comes when sin creates distance. This was the cup he asked to have taken from him in the garden. This was the true agony. And yet, he walked forward, step by painful step, knowing what awaited him. Not just the cross, but the moment when he would cry out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Have you ever felt abandoned? Have you ever cried out and heard only silence? Then you have tasted just a fraction of what Jesus experienced in that moment. But here's where the revelation comes. In that cry of abandonment, Jesus wasn't just expressing his pain. He was quoting the first line of Psalm chapter 22, a psalm that begins in despair but ends in triumph. He was declaring that even in the darkest moment of human history, there was a divine plan unfolding. A plan of redemption, a plan of love. One thing that Pope Francis pointed out was the power of silence on Good Friday. Between Jesus' final words and his death, there was silence. The world held its breath. Heaven seemed to pause, and in that silence, the greatest work was being done. Sometimes, it's in our most silent moments that God is working most powerfully. When we feel nothing, when we hear nothing, when we see no evidence of his presence, that might be when he's closest of all. When the work of transformation is happening deep within. Think about the times in your life when God seemed absent. Could it be that, like on Good Friday, he was actually doing his most important work? Could it be that what looked like abandonment was actually the prelude to resurrection? The Holy Father reminds us that silence is not emptiness. Silence is not absence. Sometimes, silence is the language of God working in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Just as the silence of Holy Saturday was not the end of the story, the silences in our lives are not the end either. Another profound insight from Pope Francis concerns freedom. On the cross, Jesus demonstrated the ultimate freedom, not freedom from suffering, but freedom within suffering. He chose the nails, he embraced the cross, he could have called 10,000 angels, but he freely gave himself up for love of us. This redefines what freedom means. True freedom isn't the absence of constraints or the ability to do whatever we want. True freedom is the ability to choose love, even when love costs everything. True freedom is saying yes to God's will, even when that will leads through the valley of the shadow of death. When Jesus hung on the cross, his hands and feet were nailed down, but his heart was more free than any heart has ever been. Free to forgive his executioners. Free to promise paradise to the thief beside him. Free to entrust his mother to John's care. Free to love until the very end. And this freedom is offered to us as well. We cannot always choose our circumstances. We cannot always avoid suffering. But we can choose how we respond. We can choose to love. We can choose to forgive. We can choose to trust. And in that choice lies a freedom that the world cannot give and cannot take away. Have you ever wondered why, after his resurrection, Jesus still bore the marks of the nails? His body was glorified, perfect in every way, and yet, he chose to keep his scars. Pope Francis suggests that this tells us something profound about our own wounds and scars. When Jesus appeared to Thomas, he didn't hide his wounds. He invited Thomas to touch them, to place his finger in the nail marks and his hand in the side that had been pierced. Those wounds, once sources of pain, had become proof of his identity and evidence of his love. In the same way, our wounds need not define us or diminish us. When surrendered to God, when touched by his grace, they can become testimonies. The very things that have hurt us most deeply can become the places through which his light shines most brightly. Think about the wounds you carry, the disappointments, the betrayals, the losses. What if those aren't just painful memories to be hidden away? What if, like Christ's wounds, they could become holy places, evidence of battles fought, suffering endured, and love that refused to give up? The Holy Father reminds us that there is no resurrection without the cross, no Easter Sunday without Good Friday. And perhaps there is no healing that doesn't somehow incorporate our wounds rather than simply erasing them. One of the most revolutionary aspects of the cross is how it completely reverses the world's value system. In the kingdom of this world, power, wealth, and status are everything. But on Good Friday, the King of Kings wore a crown of thorns. The Lord of Lords washed feet. The author of life chose death. Pope Francis emphasizes that this wasn't just a temporary strategy or a necessary evil. It was a revelation of who God truly is and what his kingdom is really like. Jesus didn't temporarily set aside his glory to suffer. Rather, his suffering revealed his glory in its truest form. On the cross, we see that true greatness is found in service. True power is revealed in vulnerability. True wisdom appears as foolishness to those who don't understand. And true life comes through death to self. This turns everything upside down. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. The poor in spirit inherit the kingdom. The meek receive the earth as their inheritance. Those who weep will laugh. Those who hunger and thirst for righteousness will be satisfied. And this isn't just abstract theology. It's a direct challenge to how we live. Do we pursue comfort, or are we willing to embrace the cross? Do we seek popularity, or are we willing to be rejected as he was? Do we demand our rights, or are we willing to lay them down for others? Perhaps the most comforting revelation that Pope Francis shares about Good Friday is this: when we feel most abandoned by God, he may be closest of all. When Jesus cried out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" It appeared that the Father had turned away. But the reality was different. The Father was present even in his seeming absence. He was working even in the apparent defeat. He was loving even when love seemed to have failed. And this gives us tremendous hope for our own dark nights of the soul. Have you ever prayed and felt like your prayers hit the ceiling? Have you ever searched for God and found only emptiness? Have you ever needed him most desperately and sensed him least tangibly? Then you are in holy company. You stand with Christ himself in the mystery of divine hiddenness. But the message of Good Friday is that such moments are not what they seem. God is never more present than when he seems most absent. Never more active than when all appears lost. Never more committed to your good than when everything seems to be falling apart. This is hard to believe in the moment. It requires faith. But isn't that what Good Friday was all about? Jesus, choosing to believe in the Father's goodness even when he couldn't feel it. Jesus, trusting the promise of resurrection even as he tasted death. Jesus, maintaining faith in the ultimate victory even in the face of apparent total defeat. One of the most profound theological insights that Pope Francis offers about Good Friday is that the cross stands as the ultimate meeting point between divinity and humanity. In Jesus Christ, God and man come together. And on the cross, we see both the depth of human sin and the height of divine love. Think about it. On one side, we have the worst that humanity is capable of: betrayal, cruelty, mockery, violence, indifference. The creature murdering the Creator. The maid rejecting the Maker. It's the lowest point of human history, revealing how far we had fallen from our original glory. But on the other side, we have the best that God is capable of: sacrifice, forgiveness, mercy, redemption. The Creator dying for the creature. The Maker embracing the maid. It's the highest point of divine love, revealing how far God would go to restore us to relationship with him. And where do these two realities meet? At the cross. In the broken body of Jesus. In his blood poured out. In his hands stretched wide, one hand touching the depth of human depravity, the other touching the height of divine grace, and his body bridging the gap between them. This is why the cross is not just a historical event but an eternal reality. It's the place where we bring our sin and find God's forgiveness. Where we bring our weakness and find God's strength. Where we bring our death and find God's life. One of the most difficult questions humanity faces is the problem of suffering. Why does God allow it? What purpose does it serve? How can a good God permit such pain? Pope Francis suggests that while the cross doesn't provide an intellectual answer to these questions, it offers something more valuable: a presence within them. In Christ's suffering, God doesn't explain pain, he enters it. He doesn't provide a philosophical justification for why bad things happen, he experiences the worst that can happen. He doesn't tell us why the innocent suffer, he becomes the innocent who suffers. And somehow, mysteriously, this presence makes all the difference. It doesn't take away the pain, but it transforms it. It doesn't eliminate suffering, but it redeems it. It doesn't explain evil, but it defeats it. When you suffer, you're not alone. When you weep, your tears mingle with his. When you feel broken, you share in his brokenness. And just as his suffering gave birth to new life, your suffering, united with his, can bear fruit you cannot yet imagine. This doesn't mean we seek suffering or glorify it for its own sake. Jesus himself asked for the cup to pass from him. But it does mean that when suffering comes, as it will in this falling world, it need not be meaningless. It can be an opportunity for deeper communion with the one who suffered for us. In the Gospels, we find something remarkable about Jesus on the cross. Despite his agony, he spoke. 7 times, he broke his silence to offer words that continue to echo through history. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Today you will be with me in paradise. Woman, behold your son. Behold your mother. My God, why have you forsaken me? I thirst. It is finished. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Pope Francis invites us to listen deeply to these words, for in them we find a voice speaking through apparent defeat. A voice that offers forgiveness when revenge would seem justified. A voice that promises paradise in the midst of hell. A voice that establishes new relationships when old ones are breaking. A voice that questions abandonment yet trusts beyond it. A voice that admits human need. A voice that declares completion in what looks like failure. A voice that surrenders all. This is the paradox of Good Friday, that in the moment when Jesus seemed most silenced by the powers of this world, his voice spoke words that would transform it forever. When it appeared that death had the final say, life himself was speaking words that death could not overcome. And this paradox continues in our lives. When we feel most silenced by circumstances, by illness, by opposition, by our own sin, those can become the very moments when God's voice speaks most clearly through us. Not despite our weakness, but through it. Not around our suffering, but within it. One of the most revolutionary aspects of Christianity, highlighted powerfully by Pope Francis, is the scandal of a suffering God. In other religious and philosophical systems, divinity is often defined by its immunity to suffering. Gods are powerful, transcendent, untouchable by human pain. But our God hangs on a cross. This was foolishness to the Greeks and a stumbling block to the Jews. It remains a stumbling block today. How can the all-powerful be powerless? How can the source of all life die? How can the judge be judged? How can the king wear thorns instead of gold? Yet this apparent contradiction is at the heart of our faith. In Christ, we see that God's power is most perfectly revealed not in immunity to suffering but in the capacity to suffer for love's sake. Not in distance from our pain but in willingness to share it. Not in force that crushes opposition but in love that absorbs it and transforms it. This is a God worth worshiping. Not a distant deity watching our struggles from afar, but a God who knows from within what it means to be human. A God who has tasted our tears. A God who has felt abandoned. A God who has died our death so that we might live his life. The scandal of the cross becomes, for those with eyes to see, the greatest revelation of divine love the world has ever known. It's not a sign of weakness but the ultimate display of strength. Strength to love without limit, to forgive without condition, to redeem without reservation. To those watching on that first Good Friday, it appeared that everything had gone terribly wrong. The miracle worker performed no miracle to save himself. The teacher fell silent. The healer could not heal his own wounds. The one who claimed to be king was crowned with thorns and enthroned on a cross. Even his followers had scattered. One had betrayed him for silver. Another had denied knowing him. Most had run away. Only a few women, his mother, and one disciple remained to witness his final hours. By any human measure, this was total defeat. But Pope Francis reminds us that appearances can be deceiving. What looked like defeat was actually victory in disguise. What seemed like darkness was the light breaking through. What appeared to be the end was really just the beginning. In the apparent weakness of the cross, divine power was at work. In the seeming defeat of death, eternal life was securing its triumph. In the visible shame of crucifixion, invisible glory was being revealed. And this gives us hope for the battles we face. The times when everything seems to be going wrong. The prayers that appear unanswered. The dreams that look dead. The relationships that feel broken beyond repair. What if, in these very circumstances, a hidden victory is being worked out? What if God is most active precisely when he seems most absent? Good Friday teaches us to trust beyond appearances, to believe despite evidence to the contrary, to hope even when hope seems lost, because the God who turned the cross from defeat to victory can transform our circumstances too. At the heart of Good Friday stands a love that defies comprehension, a love that shows the nails, a love that endured the mockery, a love that forgave the unforgivable, a love that would not let go of us, of hope, of the promise of redemption. Pope Francis speaks of this as a stubborn love, a love that persists when any rational love would have given up, a love that says, no matter what you do, I will not stop loving you. No matter how far you run, I will pursue you. No matter how often you reject me, I will offer myself again. This love is not sentimental or soft. It is strong and fierce and costly. It does not turn away from suffering but walks straight into it. It does not avoid death but embraces it. It does not demand reciprocation but gives without guarantee of return. And this love is personal. When Jesus hung on that cross, he wasn't dying for an abstract concept called humanity. He was dying for you. He knew your name. He saw your face. He felt your specific sins and struggles and wounds. And he said, this one is worth it. This one I will not lose. For this one, I give my life. The cross stands as the eternal proof that you are loved more deeply than you can imagine. Not because you earned it. Not because you deserve it. Not because you're better than others, but simply because that's who God is. Love is his identity, not just his action. And on Good Friday, that identity was revealed in its fullest expression. As we come to the end of our journey through the profound revelations of Good Friday, we're left with an invitation. The cross is not just something to study or admire from a distance. It's something to respond to, something that demands a decision. Pope Francis emphasizes that the cross invites us to move beyond mere religious observance into genuine relationship, beyond intellectual agreement into wholehearted commitment, beyond admiration of Jesus into imitation of him. The question is not just, do you believe in the cross? But, will you take up your cross and follow him? Not just, do you accept what Jesus did? But, will you allow his death to become your life? This is the invitation that changes everything. To die to self so that Christ might live in you. To surrender your plans, your rights, your comfort, your very identity, and receive his in return. To say with Paul, I have been crucified with Christ and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. This is not a one-time decision but a daily choice. A moment-by-moment surrender. A continual dying that leads to continual rising. And it's not just an individual journey but a communal one. We are called to form a community of the cross. People who bear one another's burdens, who forgive as they have been forgiven, who love as they have been loved. As you hear this message, as you contemplate the cross anew, what is your response? Will you move beyond passive belief to active discipleship? Will you allow the scandal of the cross to reshape your values, your priorities, your very identity? Will you receive the love poured out there and then pour it out for others? The invitation stands. The choice is yours. And the God who loved you enough to die for you waits patiently for your answer. The revelation of Good Friday isn't meant to remain in the realm of theology or history. It's meant to transform how we live each day. Pope Francis emphasizes that carrying our cross doesn't just mean enduring the big sufferings that come our way. It means bringing the spirit of Christ's self-giving love into every aspect of our lives. It means choosing patience when irritated, choosing forgiveness when hurt, choosing generosity when it would be easier to hold back, choosing truth when a lie would be more convenient, choosing to serve when we'd rather be served, choosing to listen when we'd rather speak, choosing to stay when we'd rather walk away. These daily deaths to self create space for divine life to flow through us. They're not dramatic or visible, but they're real. And over time, they transform us into people who reflect the love revealed on Good Friday. Not just in special moments of sacrifice, but in the ordinary fabric of everyday life. Think about your relationships, your home, your workplace, your online presence, your use of time and money. Where might God be inviting you to die to self so that his love can be more fully revealed? Where might he be calling you to embrace the small crosses of daily life so that others might encounter his grace through you? The way of the cross isn't just for special saints or spiritual heroes. It's for mothers changing diapers and fathers working long hours to support their families. It's for students staying honest when cheating would be easier. It's for employees doing their best even when no one notices. It's for neighbors checking on the elderly. It's for friends who tell the truth in love. In these seemingly small choices, the great mystery of Good Friday continues. Christ's death bears fruit in our daily dying to self. His sacrifice empowers our small sacrifices. His love flows through our imperfect attempts to love as he loved. As we come to the conclusion of our meditation on the profound revelations of Good Friday, let's remember the most important truth of all: death did not have the final word. The cross was not the end of the story. The grave could not hold him. Pope Francis reminds us that while Good Friday is essential to our faith, it always points forward to Easter Sunday. The darkness always gives way to dawn. The suffering always leads to glory. The death always yields to resurrection. This doesn't minimize the importance of the cross or suggest that we can somehow skip over its pain and scandal. But it does place the cross in its proper context, as the necessary pathway to new life, not as the final destination. And this gives us tremendous hope. Whatever cross you're carrying right now, whatever darkness surrounds you, whatever death you're experiencing, whether literal or figurative, is not the end of your story. If you belong to Christ, if you're united with him in his death, you will also share in his resurrection. The final word belongs to love, not to suffering, not to sin, not to darkness, not to death, but to love, the love that created us in the beginning, the love that redeemed us on the cross, the love that will restore all things in the end. This is the ultimate message of Good Friday, not just that Christ suffered and died, but that his suffering and death were expressions of a love so strong that nothing in all creation can overcome it. A love that goes to hell and back for those it cherishes. A love that turns the worst that evil can do into the means by which evil itself is defeated. As you reflect on this truth, as you allow it to sink from your head into your heart, may it transform how you see Good Friday. May it transform how you see your own suffering. And most importantly, may it transform how you see the God who loved you enough to die for you, and who lives to love you still. What you just heard was only the beginning. The cross is deeper than we ever imagined. The love of Christ is stronger than we ever knew. And if this touched your heart, let it move your hands, like, share, subscribe. Take this truth and pass it on. Because the world needs this message. Someone out there is waiting for hope. And it starts with you.